This is How to Watch TV News by Steve Powers and Neil Postman, author of Amusing Ourselves to Death. Neil Postman, an author and academic, and Steve Powers, a television journalist, reveal the difference between what TV news says it is presenting and what it actually delivers. Entertainment fodder versus genuine news. They explain why TV news has become a cash cow, pointing to the symbiotic relationship between TV news and advertising. They also stress that anyone who relies exclusively on television for his or her knowledge of the world is making a serious mistake. America is suffering from an information glut, and most Americans are no longer clear about what news is worth remembering or how any of it connects to anything else. Thus, Americans are rapidly becoming the least knowledgeable people in the industrial world. For anyone who wants to control, not be controlled by the powerful influence of television, How to Watch TV News shows you how to become a discerning viewer. Neil Postman is chairman of the Department of Communication Arts at New York University and founder of its program in media ecology. He is the author of 19 books, including Amusing Ourselves to Death and Technopoly. In 1986, he won the George Orwell Award for Clarity in Language. Steve Powers is an award-winning journalist with more than 30 years' experience in radio and television news, including as a correspondent for Fox Television News and the ABC Information Radio Network, and host of a top-rated morning talk show. Powers earned his Ph.D. in Media Studies from New York University in 1987. We wish to acknowledge the assistance of 6 people who generally provided us with their time and expertise: Professor J. Rosen of New York University, especially for his help in Chapter 8, Professor Paul Thaler of Mercy College for his research on television in the courtroom, and even for allowing us to use a few of his own words, Dr. Eva Berger of Tel Aviv University for providing a continuous flow of constructive criticism, Sherry Powers, whose insights helped guide us, Dr. Harry Royson for his inspiration, and Janet Sternberg of New York University for her editorial skills, and especially for her speedy and creative use of a word processor. Let's start with the preface. This book was written by 2 men who have different kinds of knowledge about television, but whose point of view is similar. Without the similarity, we would not be of interest to each other. Without the differences, we probably would not be of interest to the reader. One of us, Neil Postman, is an academic who has written books on the effects of media and especially on how television has altered various forms of social life. Although he once had a television show of his own, 48 half-hour programs under the aegis of Sunrise Semester, he is not skilled in the art of using television as a medium of communication. The other, Steve Powers, is a television journalist. He has a Ph.D. in media studies, but has spent most of his professional life as a practitioner of both radio and television journalism. Postman's head is filled with theories, historical knowledge, and visions of what an awesome technology like television ought to do for a culture. Powers' head is filled with practical knowledge of what television in fact does, how it does it, and what it can do. We came to the conclusion some years ago that what television news says it is presenting and what it actually delivers are 2 different things. We concluded that a tidy and truthful book on how people should prepare themselves to interpret a television news show might be useful. The book at hand is the result. Before saying anything else in the matter, we need to remark here that anyone who is not an avid reader of newspapers, magazines, and books is by definition unprepared to watch a television news show, and will always be. This point has been made many times with special force by such television journalists as Walter Cronkite, Bill Moyers, and Robert McNeil. Anyone who relies exclusively on television for his or her knowledge of the world is making a serious mistake. Just as television can show things about the world that are not possible to experience through print, print can reveal complexities and facts that are not possible to show on television. Therefore, those who have not read about the world are limited in their capacity to understand what is seen on television. As an example, consider television's presentation of the uprising by Chinese students in Tiananmen Square. Anyone who watched diligently will never forget the image of a solitary student standing in front of a tank, obstructing it from proceeding. Mao Zedong preached that power begins behind the barrel of a gun, but this image, as media critic J. Rosen once remarked, seemed to suggest that power also comes to those who face the barrel of a gun, provided that a camera catches them in the act and that the image is witnessed by a vast audience. It was television journalism at its best. But if that is all someone knew about the student uprising, it wouldn't be very much. One would have to know something about who rules in China and where these rulers came from, and by what authority or ideology they claim to rule. as well as how the students interpreted the meaning of freedom and democracy. These are complex matters that are beyond the scope of simple television newscasts and must be learned through extensive reading of newspapers and books. And so the first lesson we have to teach is that preparation for watching a television news show begins with the preparation of one's mind through extensive reading. This lesson is of sufficient importance that we have seen fit to include it in our introduction. Having made this essential point, we will now turn our attention to all the others. Are you watching television, or is television watching you? Chances are you have at least one television set in your home that is used by most members of your family. Surveys of viewing patterns show that in an average household, the television set is in use over 7 hours a day. Nowadays, with the availability of cable, there are more programs than we have time to watch, even with the help of our VCRs. There are networks that carry only comedy or news or music or courtroom proceedings or financial information or weather. There are even channels for shopping addicts who can't get enough buying done at their favorite stores. Insomniacs know when sleep is stopping, you can always go shopping. The 92.1 million households in the United States with television sets have access to a constant stream of tempting programs that divert us every waking hour of our days. And of course, there is a tremendous number of movies and other shows that can be rented on videotape or traded among aficionados. All these programs are vying for your attention and time. Each show, series, and network is waving its electronic billboards at you, trying to grab your attention, in effect saying, "Watch me, watch me." But your time is limited and valuable, so you choose the programs you want to watch, and if you have a VCR, you can even choose when you want to watch them. With such an awesome technology at our beck and call, we tend to view television like any other appliance. Put it on when you want to, turn it off when you're through. Since you control it, you think that television is a one-way street, that you're using it, and that it's not using you. But that's simply not the case. Your television set may not be able to see you eating snacks in your living room, but it's still keeping an eye on you in different ways. The fact of the matter is that television not only delivers programs to your home, but more important to the advertising community, it also delivers you to a sponsor. Advertisers and suppliers of programs spend a fortune slicing, dicing, chopping, and crunching numbers that will tell them what you are watching, along with every bit of information about you that they can get. They are not playing information, please. The kind of knowledge the advertisers seek gives them power, and the more they know about you, the easier it is to sell you something. Developers of interactive television boast that in the future they will be able to send specific commercials to their subscribers based on the household's demographic composition. Theoretically, commercials for sneakers can be programmed to families with children who play basketball, while another commercial, perhaps for prescription drugs, can be sent to another family composed of older people. That's in the future. In effect, custom-tailored sales pitches. But right now, advertisers have to rely on attracting a large enough audience to their programs to deliver their messages. In fact, the reason popular TV series get on air and stay there is that they can deliver the right audience for a sponsor, an audience that sees commercials and buys products or ideas. There is no escaping that fact. The whole point of television in America is to get you to watch so that programs, performers, and others can rake in the money. Published reports say Merv Griffin, who originated the program Wheel of Fortune, sold his company to Coca-Cola for $250 million, which in turn sold it to the Sony Corporation for even more. It has been reported in Fortune magazine that Oprah Winfrey has an estimated annual income of $40 million. Bill Cosby owns a healthy percentage of his television show and is a multimillionaire, sharing in the profits of his program, reruns, and syndication. All of which is to say that American television producers have been enormously successful in attracting large audiences. Their programs have been so popular that they threaten to undermine the TV systems of other countries throughout the world. For example, several European countries are trying to limit the number of American TV programs on the air so that more time can be given to their own programs, emphasizing their own cultural values. This isn't easy to do since American programs, when in direct competition with local shows, consistently draw audiences away from homegrown products and create a demand for more American programs. It might look like American TV producers are having everything their own way. Not so. The cost of producing sitcoms and other forms of popular entertainment has been growing. It now costs approximately $900,000 to produce a one-hour entertainment program. Producers claim they have to sell their programs to the networks, then syndicate them to make a profit. And while costs have been increasing, the audience for individual shows has declined as viewers find more in different channels and tapes to watch. It's no secret that news programs cost a lot less to produce than slick Hollywood dramas and laugh track comedies. An hour of a news program, such as the CBS show 48 Hours, costs $500,000 or less. Compare that to an hour of so-called entertainment programming with fancy production values at about twice the cost, and you'll know why the networks and other producers have found a new interest in news programs. With the cost of news relatively inexpensive, there is more news being presented on television now than ever before. Not too long ago, television news programs were money-losing products limited to a half hour each day in the Sunday morning public affairs ghetto. But that's all changed. News programs are profit centers for the networks. There are all news cable channels, special television rooms, and the plethora special television news programs for children beamed into classrooms, and the plethora of network and syndicated news shows. Playing the numbers, there are 48 hours, 60 minutes in 2020. There are early morning and late night news programs. There are tabloid news shows and programs featuring recreations. Networks are making heavy profits from news, and on-air talent is being paid more than ever to communicate to the public. New technology has speeded the transmission of news into your home faster than ever before. Every night, an estimated 40 million people watch the news on the major networks, and millions more watch local news coverage. Moreover, the news audience is a highly desirable one. People who watch news tend to be more attentive to what is on the screen. They tend to be better educated and have more money to spend than the audiences for other shows. They are therefore a prime target for advertisers trying to reach an affluent market. Trying to reach the audience, sponsors are willing to pour money into well-produced commercials. And these spots are often longer in length than most news stories and certainly cost more to produce than what's going into the content of the news. The commercials are fast-paced, exciting, and colorful, and as a result, influence the way the news stories around them are produced. Propelled by the energy of the Madison Avenue Shuffle, the whole news program takes on a rhythm and pace designed to hold interest and build viewership. More viewers, higher ratings, more advertising dollars, more profit, more similar programs to try to attract more viewers ad infinitum. So while there's a public service element deciding which news programs get on the air, the main factor is the profit motive. In fact, where news operations used to be considered a public service nonprofit operation of a station or network in the new economics, news departments and programs are now expected to make money, and they do. It's estimated that the ABC network made $40 to $50 million on commercials aired on the news alone last year. Executives at ABC have been quoted as saying that while being number one in the ratings used to be worth an additional $30 million for a network, that's no longer true. The new real standard of success, ABC says, is a demographic breakdown of the audience into age groups, with younger viewers favored by advertisers. Of course, some news professionals believe that news departments dedicated to good solid journalism will bring credibility to the whole broadcast network or local station, and that therefore profitability should be secondary to educating the public for the common good. But news professionals aren't usually as powerful as accountants. The idea is to make as much money as possible from news departments, sometimes to the detriment of truth and journalism. Every broadcaster tries to determine how much programs are worth to the advertiser, but since they cannot go around to every home to find out what everyone is watching, broadcasters depend on rating systems to measure audiences. Companies that do the surveys, such as Nielsen and Arbitron, use so-called scientific samples to find how many people are watching each show. In these samples, less than a few thousand people may represent the whole nation of viewers. And from time to time, the sample may be exactly representational. Not always by a long shot. In one case, a blind man living in the Bridgeport, Connecticut area was representing 100,000 people. He enjoyed listening to television. The shows with the most interesting soundtrack got his vote. Rating companies do not simply count the viewers of a particular show. As we mentioned earlier, they slice, dice, chop, and crunch the viewer information, and then report to advertisers who pay them for these statistics. They try to know the age of those watching a specific show, their income, their level of education, what kinds of cars they own, what appliances they bought, their eating habits, etc. The answers are produced by asking a sample of viewers questions either over the phone or in writing and from logs that the viewers fill out. At least one rating service is experimenting with a device that would sit near the TV set and scan the room electronically to see how many people are watching, and the scanner would even identify the viewers. Well, all of this means is that while you're watching the TV set, you are being statistically watched and very carefully by managers, accountants, and business people. They argue that they must know who you are to mirror your interests and give you what you want, and to pay for it, they must run commercials. They also point out that other news media, newspapers for example, are money-making enterprises and rely just as heavily on advertising as does television. These arguments make perfect sense in a free enterprise business with no social responsibility, but we would stress that broadcasting is not just another business enterprise. Broadcasting is a government licensed activity using publicly owned airwaves and public facilities, and therefore broadcasters have an obligation not only to make money but to enlighten the public by supplying news and programs of serious content for all segments of the population. To this, the TV establishment replies that television is the most democratic institution in America. Every week, a plebiscite of sorts is held to determine which programs are popular and which are not. The popular ones stay, the others go. This proves, the accountants say, that our programs give the public what it wants. Serious journalists and social critics have an answer, at least so far as news is concerned. It is this: when providing the public with entertainment, the public's preferences must be paramount, but news is different. There are things the public must know whether or not they like it. To understand what is happening in the world and what it means requires knowledge of historical, political, and social contexts. It is the task of journalists to provide people with such knowledge. News is not entertainment, it is a necessity in a democratic society, and therefore TV news must give people what they need along with what they want. The solution is to present news in a form that will compel the attention of a large audience without subverting the goal of informing the public. But as things stand now, it is essential that any viewer understand the following when turning on a TV news show. American television is an unsleeping money machine. While journalists pursue newsworthy events, business-oriented management often makes decisions based on business considerations. Many decisions about the form and content of news programs are made on the basis of information about the viewer, the purpose of which is to keep viewers watching so that they will be exposed to the commercials. This is obviously not all that can be said about TV news, or else we would end our book here. But anything else that can and will be said must be understood within the framework of TV news as a commercial enterprise.